Hello everybody. In this video, I wanted to introduce the concept of Vue, Vue.js actually version number 3, and what better way to introduce it than actually building a mini application. Mini application will be my grocery list that we did it on the previous video for the previous week, and we're going to convert that one in a Vue.js app. So what is a Vue.js itself? Vue.js in reality is a JavaScript framework that it helps you construct reactive applications. It's an easy way to make interactivity in your app and to have that reactivity through the data and the concept. It can be really modular. You will see that the concept is a little bit different as a traditional HTML, but introducing those elements in. And one of the best ways to do is using the view file, so the single file component, the way they call it, where every file has his compilation of his JavaScript code, his HTML code or the template, and the styling of the CSS part. And even that we actually learn a little bit how to have those separated, and then we have like a full list, we'll see how we can actually separate those through components and keep the logic where it's supposed to be. We're going to use also some libraries that will help us facilitate the job a little bit, just the same way that we use it with Skypack in my grocery list, but we'll use npm dependencies now. And I will go through the process. Probably it will be a little bit fast. So if you have any question, don't hesitate to reach out to me and submit it. But you will see that pretty much the concepts are really similar when you have JavaScript really with the basic understanding actually of JavaScript. You will see that the concept is actually not that bad. It's easy to see and will be a lot faster to to create the app. So before we proceed, I want to go through my grocery list and what we did in the previous video. So in our HTML, have basic HTML for 30 pages, lines, sorry. We created the reset CSS. That reset CSS just a simple file that would help us reset all the CSS styling defaults from the browser. So we have the full control for everything that is supposed to happen. And our script file where we use the local DB from PDB and short ID from short ID, and then use the confetti from canvas confetti. And it's actually pretty more small, like 39 lines. Not that bad. Where we created the database through local DBs using local storage in the browser. Then we initialize the groceries application up through getting everything through there or defaulting to empty. And then we did some selections to the DOM where we target the grocery list, the new grocery input element, and the add button. And we target those because we use them for create grocery element. Actually, a grocery we just append a new child that will be the create grocery element, and that create grocery element it does is create a new list item, I believe. Yes, a new list item right here, where we added that grocery value that came from here, and then we start adding some class and event listener in order to be able to delete that element from the list. And then we added a little confetti just to make it splash something at the bottom. We did and we added another event listener to the click, and this was for the add button. Here we prevented the default behavior in order not to post, not to do a submit, right? And keep it everything inside the same page. And then we just assign the value, verify that the value exists, and the value exists. We just pretty much create a new ID, and we add that particular grocery. At the same time, appended the new create grocery element through the list item. It's not that big, not that bad, and you will see through the code, you can read pretty much what we did there. And we use the custom CSS styling. For that, we use a little bit of variables, and those variables were actually created through, we came out from we look at all for through internet. I don't remember right now the term, but basic variables that we can explain, I think. And and then we just targeted different elements. So things that we'll use different is we'll continue using JavaScript at the end. Vue.js is a JavaScript framework, and we'll show you the introduction through that. But on top of that, I don't want to use traditional CSS. I want to use another library for that. That will be Tailwind. And Tailwind is just, as you can see right here, is how to build modern websites without ever leaving your HTML. What does mean is just creating different classes. You can have a different, you can style an element. So this element here, as you can see, this was created with these classes that the different tags for the HTML actually has. And the best way to actually see it working, we can actually refresh it and you will see, just put it there, added a couple of things, and you will see pretty much how the elements start changing through classes. It's a class-based behavior, and it's actually really neat. Yeah. You have a learning curve, of course, like everything, but after you get ahead of that, you will see that it's actually really beneficial. And we're using another way through the apply, so we will not keep like that many classes in our code. We will put on the we will put those on the styling and the same view component file. You will see that in a minute, and you can see what we can actually do. So here we actually have a responsive design using the same HTML to those particular classes. It's really good. I recommend to go through the documentation, and you will see the different way to actually do it and how to use it. For the storage section, because we're going to use Vue.use is a composable library of common utilities that we can use in Vue.js. And one of those is actually use storage. That pretty much what it does is use local storage. As simple as that. And we can handle the element as an array the way that we did it, and we just call it through the storage, and you will be that it's really, really simple. And we will be using nano ID in this case just to create the unique identifier for every element for the grocery. So those are the ones that we're into using. And well, probably we add the confetti too at the end. And that's pretty much the same way that we did before. So let me actually get started. In order to create a new, after you have your environment ready, the best way to do is npm init byte. So let's call the project and I will do view grocery. Now, but instead of selecting vanilla, in this case, we're going to select Vue as a framework. And you will see a couple of differences that we need to have here in order to understand it. We want to use traditional Vue. We are not using TypeScript. TypeScript is outside the scope of this project. And we can go to Vue grocery. We need to install our dependencies. We have what we need to do here. npm install. And forget about that. And then before we run it, I will actually open it in my and had that in my other folder. I will show that in a minute. And npm run that. It will create a server, and that particular server will have the. We can actually use it through here, I believe. If I do control, there you go. So we have our application working. It's pretty neat. We have a counter here that is actually using create whenever you will click it, and that's it. It's a simple Vue application. So let's go through the process to understand what is there. I will keep this running for a minute, and I will change it later. But let me actually put my Visual Studio code, and let me make it a little bit bigger and put this one over here. There you go. In order to understand the different elements that we have in the page. So the first thing that you will see, we have the package JSON, where we have listed everything on dependencies. Right now we just have Vue, the plugin Vue and Bit as a development dependencies. Then we have the HTML, and here where the, the beginning of the changes start to showcase. So our HTML is actually simpler. We just have pretty much everything that's inside the head. On the body, we just reference the main JavaScript file, and we had an empty div with an ID of app. Here is where our application is going to be rendered, and we will inject all that information through JavaScript. A little bit how we actually injected or appended a child with the list item. Well, but here we will actually inject everything. And where that app created or defined it is actually in the source directory. Git ignore is, we know what it is, public. It were every public file. In this case, we have the bit logo, I think this one over here. And on source, we have the assets, we have some image there. And we have, let's go with the main JavaScript file. This is what actually we are importing inside that HTML page. As you can see, we are importing create application from view. Basically, we created, we importing some styling here in JavaScript, and then a component called application, and then we are mounting that component in our application ID in our HTML. That's pretty much what we're saying here. Now, everything that came from that application need to be mounted right here. We'll see the styling. We use a basic style there, nothing too fancy. If we go to the application view, this is a single file component that I was talking before. And it looks a little weird at the beginning, but we have the script set up at the beginning, that's all the JavaScript, and we have some documentation there that we can actually follow. We have the template tag. That template tag is pretty much our HTML that is going to get rendered, and then we have the styling, extra styling that we need to apply. So we have the master level styling. That's through the style CSS that is imported in our main JavaScript. This is our entry point. But we have a scope level CSS that's only going to be affected in this area and not in the complete app by itself. Pretty cool. The other thing that we actually have here, as you can see, we are importing Hello World, and that's another view component, and we can see this inside our components folder. If we open our component folder and see the view, you will see another component, pretty much the same case. We have the script at the beginning, the template later, and the scope styling. And here we have the rest of the elements inside. This is a little bit different. We are getting a prop where we requesting a message, and we just printed that message through this double curly bracket. So instead of putting a message there, we are actually sending the value of this variable or this prop in this case to that message, and that's the one that actually gets rendered right here. And how we call that, actually in our application view, when we call the hello world, we define the prop message here. So if we change this to hello there, with our server running, and we save it, this title will change to hello there. So let me save it, and we can see that the title changed because that message will get injected in our component through props. So it's really cool. We will go see in this a little more detail during the semester. But for now, what I want to do is I actually want to do some cleanup. So I will remove everything inside the script setup. I will remove everything inside my template and probably just do an H1. And I will call this hello there. And I will delete all my styling for now. Perfect. The next thing that we need to do, our CSS file, I need to clean it up. I don't want anything there for now. Our page got rendered with the default values, and that's okay. And now we can actually start deleting elements. We are not importing the view file, we can actually delete it. The hello view. And that should be somewhere here. There. And if it fails, don't worry, we can actually make it work again. We are not using the SVG files, the logos that we have here, that is inside the asset and inside our public. So we can actually get rid of both. And the only other thing is going to public, sorry, to index.html. And let's remove the icon because we're not using it anymore. And we save this. We have almost everything there. Let's change the title. And let's actually put our title that we want to be using. So it's going to be our view grocery list. And I have the little, let's actually put this one over here. There. And let's start getting everything injected here. Something that probably I forgot to mention is let's do the fonts Google. And in our application, and my grocery list, let's view the code in the index.html. We're actually using the Poppins family. So let's actually get it from Google Fonts. And actually have it already here. The only difference is we're going to import it and just copy the content. And we're going to go over in our main style and save it there. This style is already been rendered in our app and it's already been imported through our main JavaScript style CSS. If you're going to see the page right now, how it looks like, that style is not gonna apply it because we just need to put the font family the way that it's supposed to. And actually selected all the way here and no pop-ins. Probably there. Let's keep it like that. So let me do just a simple body and change the font family. That will make the font family to change. I will keep this here for a minute. Well, actually, let me remove it. We don't need it. We want to use Tailwind to that. So after we have that, we actually have our repository initialized. We can actually do is go to Tailwind, get starting, and we're going to use framework guide for Bit and tell us the steps how to install Tailwind in a Vue 3 and Bit project. This part we already did it. We created already the Bit project. It's asking us to install these three elements, Tailwind, PostCSS, and Auto Prefixer. So let me open my terminal here. Let me install those. And then let me initialize my Tailwind CSS with this command, with npx. Remove, copy and paste it, enter. That will create my Tailwind config and my post CSS. Don't worry what this means. We are going to compile everything at the end and it will actually generate an HTML and CSS and JavaScript. But you will see the benefit to have it through here. So now that we have that, we need to open our Tailwind config. And that was created right here. Actually, I had it here, yes. And we're going to change the content element to include the index.html and everything inside the source directory. It is important for Tailwind to know where the elements are going to be using the Tailwind classes. So we copy and pasted that and it worked. Later, we need to import an index CSS and we need to call it that in our main JavaScript file. Well, we don't have index CSS, we have style and it's already been imported in that file. So we can actually just copy this. I will put this one on the top and this will be one line below. Okay, those. This part we don't need to do it because our main JavaScript file already has it. It's style CSS. Then that should be it. We can now start using different elements for Tailwind. Because let me see the page, let me try to refresh it. If it didn't work it because we have post CSS, what we need to do is we need to close our server and run it again. And we will see that if the text get entered here, that will got installed. And Tailwind what it does is do a reset automatically. So we don't need to have that reset anymore because Tailwind handled that for us. Pretty cool. We can test if Tailwind is working properly with applying some classes to the H1 element. Which classes do we apply? We can actually look for those through Tailwind documentation. Let's say that I want to talk about font size, style, font sizes right here. And we have text, SML, base, LG, XL to XL, etc. Let's see if I want to do borders. Let's look for borders. And we have borders with style, radius, colors, and everything is just pretty much there what we can actually do through the different classes. So anytime that you want to do your streamer, just look for it and let's apply it. In this case, I want to change my font weight and I will do a bold probably. Yes, that's the size that we have it. The size that we imported is 100, 400, 700. So I use font bold. Let me get here. So if I just added font bold class and save it, that just got effect. If I do text red, 500 is a texture specific for the red. That would change and we do font to actually is text to Excel and save it, or text just get increased. I think we can do all the way to 9 Excel, something like that. But yeah, so you can see that the benefit we can do. We can actually do text center, and that will center our text. Oops, I added an extra M here, and that the size will remove it. There you go. And then I can do a margin top, and you will see all those through the documentation. Let's do 8. 8 actually added 2 ramps, and I will show you how that actually works too. So I added that one, save it, and you get pushed a little bit. Let's actually make it bigger, something like 80, and you'll get pushed like a lot. So we can actually play around with the CSS styling through those particular classes. It's pretty neat. But you probably saw that I have that auto completion for those, and it's asking me what I need to do, what I want to do. Let's do, I don't know, background, color, background, let's do blue, and then I can actually see all this grays of blue, and move 800, or something like that, and it got applied. So the way that I had it, and that's a little bit extra, but I think it's going to be really, really beneficial, is to install some extensions to Visual Studio. I have a bunch of here. You don't need all those. I just have like a bunch. I probably need to actually remove some of them. But the one that I recommend is Volar, View Language Features, in order to see the view syntax. The other one that I like and I have enabled, and you can see through the ESLint, that helped me with some configuration to do the auto integration regarding removing the semicolon at the end, things like that. I have Reader, that's my code formatter. I have that one too, and here you can see the configuration for JavaScript, view files, things like that. And the other one is Tailwind, the official one, and that will allow to give you that auto completion that I was showing you before. So those are the ones that I actually recommend you to install and probably reset your Visual Studio Code or reload it in order to pull all all those extensions and have that auto completion the way that I had it right here. For now, let me just remove all those classes. We don't need it for now. And let's keep it things simple. I want to add something extra, and that will go to the post CSS file. And something that we look here in Tailwind. I will look for nested post CSS, as you will see here. And there is a component called, there is a plugin that I created. Oops, it's not here. Nested. Probably need to look at it again. Tailwind nested. Using with preprocessor. There you go. So Tailwind has a nesting component for post CSS, and you will see the benefit that we can apply those on the styling. So what I will do is copy this line. I will not use it the post CSS import. I just using the nesting part, and I will apply that just before here. There you go. Probably we need this one too, just in case. Put it there, and I think that actually failed. Let's see. No, actually no. Um, Now that we have that, what else we can actually do here? Let's start working with the styling for our app and continue doing some of the customizations that we had it before. So one of the things that is really important is I want to start using the railway font that we're importing the CSS. In order to do that, is adding some extended the some things here in CSS that we have for Tailwind. What I want to use is our traditional font family, and we can actually use this something like this. Let me see first, and you can look at that documentation here. Custom font, font family, something like this. So we need to import our default theme, and then we just call the font family element inside our extend. With the different that our the one that we're doing importing is railway. Let's save that. We do right click, inspect. We can go to compute it. Actually, right here, compute it. And railway is being applied. Cool. So that means we have the correct font now apply across the board. And sorry, I have a CSS speller here. Let me just add this one here. There, perfect. So what we added is just adding a new font size as default and trust to the configuration. And don't worry, it's pretty much the same command across the board. You will see all the benefits later that we're doing through here. So something that I want to start using or trying to do is start creating all the body elements inside of application.view. So the first thing that we have here is pretty much our grocery list that actually changed a little bit and called view grocery list. We have we added the class of title. We have those right there. And in order to see what we actually had there, we can go to the CSS file and let's try to mimic what we had it. So we have pretty much these elements applied here. Something really cool is we can add all those classes, so similar classes or the equivalent, through here. But the way that I like it, I want to apply a custom class. We can actually be able, in our styling, just call dot title, Tailwind CSS, and do an apply. This is a reserved word for Tailwind only, and now I can add the different Tailwind classes here. So I want to do margin, and I can do 5 is this one is margin 2, then font size 4G, so let's do text Excel, I believe. So Excel 3, 4 or 5, back to 6L will be then closest enough. And then the font weight, let's do light. And then we have letter spacing, that was actually called tracking. And we have one for 0.5, that's wider, I believe. There you go, yes. And then we apply the color, well, we'll apply the color anyway. So let me save those. And creating those elements are the same Tailwind classes that are going to be applied to our title class. And the title have the title class. That means that I have my title right here. Very cool. I probably can do this a little bit like this. So pretty neat. Just go apply it. Um, it's actually working, and that's pretty neat. Before we continue working the same, and you will see that that will be pretty much the process. Instead of having all those lines, we just keep it consistent in one line. And I think it's a little bit easier to read, and you know what is actually happening in your code. What I want to do now is I want to add all those colors to be part. You saw that we have some colors by default in Tailwind. I want to add those colors by default in the new ones. And I should keep those names: background, foreground, comment, accent, reddish, go on and go on. To do that, we're going to back to our Tailwind configuration, and we just apply a new object in the extent that will call colors, and we just apply those colors. What I did is just apply the color as an object, and I had the same names and the same codes. And those colors just got applied right here. So now I can see that my title is just the accent color. So I can actually tell here to use text dash accent. I save it, and now I have that greenish look of my title. But it's not working. It's not that it doesn't look that well yet because I actually we need to change the background. And to change the background, let's actually do well. We can actually do it in a couple of places. Let's actually do it in the index.html. I will use just my body because I want to apply this across the board. And just do background color background. And now I see that this and do the name probably. There you go. And let me just do the foreground text as default. And I'm using those because those are the ones that we have right here, background color and the color. The rest of the elements we can actually apply somewhere else, and probably this one too. Actually, yes, let me try to apply those somewhere else. This. And let me get back here, and what I'm going to do is I will grab everything in a section of, let's actually call main. And my main element, I will add those classes there. Let's see if that actually worked. A little bit. But that means that we need to add extra elements because we are not using to the body itself. So that's why I like it, just because they are like a general one. Apply it right here. So we can actually remove those from here, and we can just concentrate in the particular elements that we need to have. So I'm actually removing everything because I will tag the main element completely and I do to apply a couple of classes that we will need. So we're telling them that we need to display flex. It's actually really simple, just type flex. And then flex direction column, it will be flex column. Flex direction column, justify content. Justify center, I think. And the align items, item center, we can actually use to. And the font family is already being applied. So just creating those there, we can see it just got aligned in the middle. What I want to use now is I want actually to change the styling a little bit. And instead of using CSS by default, I actually want to use language of CSS. It's going to be pretty much the same. It's going to be rendered as CSS at the end, but because we have installed bit had that by we tell it that to Tailwind, we can and we do the nesting thing. We can actually put the title inside, and everything still works. So we're saying that our main component title, those are the elements that are going to be. This will be rendered by default as main.title, something like this. But instead of like repeating myself several times and repeating those in order to be specific about the connection, the nesting will help you see a little bit how things actually works. And I like it, and you will see the benefits of having those there. So now we can actually proceed. Let me see if I can actually do HTML. So after we have the title, we have the form. So we have form here without action, and we will talk about the action later. And we have an input, and we have a button. Let's call this button add for now. And that should be rendered right here. Yes. Input and a button. So let's start applying some styles to our form and to the button. But before we apply those, I think the input actually can be a little bit better. Let's actually take all this name and let's change this to full the same. It will allow us to have add an item in your list and the other. Perfect. So now we can actually tag them on our CSS and start applying some styles. So because it's actually nested form is inside main, I wanted to apply to main form, and I can do this nesting as pretty neat. And I do the apply. And forget about that. Let me do the same elements that we had before. In grocery form, we have display flex. Let's do the flex thing. And we'll talk about the extra ones later. But for now, that's the one that we have. And then on the new grocery and the add button, we have different elements. So we will add now to the input inside the form. Now you will see the benefit of the nested part. We do the apply. Background. Oops, background white. Then text will be comment. We're playing the same one here. Then we do padding. And we need to have O5. That will be actually padding 2. Then we do the width think 80. Yeah. And then we do the text Excel. No, to Excel. Yes, in order to have the 1.5. Uh, radius. Actually, we have rounded. Before in order to do the radius, it's rounded. And we're going to do rounded on the left side. And let's actually do. I think we can actually apply medium level. That should be more than enough. And save it. That it created, make it the sizing. Now we have that styling rounding that came by default through Tailwind because it is important to have that distinction for the readers in your application when something gets focused, like something input, getting that round. But it doesn't look that well, and we can actually change it through Tailwind. And I want to actually do that. So what I will do in this case, for now, I will do apply the outline none and just dot get removed. Perfect. Now that I have everything for my input, the sister element will be in the bottom, and I will want to apply background accent to text, and let's close that background. Okay, looking getting there. Adding to text to Excel. This there. Oops, I got it this one. Okay. Adding to text to Excel on bold, and in order to have the same effect, we will need to round it to the right side. So, and actually, I already had it here. Perfect. So now it looks like a one big element. Probably to the form, I will add some margin top of 8. We separate that a little bit from our title. And we can actually have probably the main element have the margin top to margin top 8. So just push it a little bit down. What else we can do? Something really cool that we can do is we can apply an effect to the form. Whenever I click something inside the form, all the elements will be surrounded. So you will see now the outline working the way that I supposed to. And it has something really cool called focus within. And I will say when this happen, I need a ring, a really big ring. And there you have it. That now we have that one over, and it get through the bottom too, is what I needed or what I wanted. Perfect. But let's actually make this rounded so we can actually apply it whenever it's focused within. And that's the beauty of this one. I will do ring accent, and I will do focus within rounded because we're using medium here. The large element actually have a really good way to look at and it look like consistent. So now whenever it gets affected, we have that rounded that go all across and I think works pretty cool. Probably something that we need to do is the hover over the button. And for that, inside the button, we added the and hover because we want in order not to gray button again, to the video post CSS. And let's add something really simple. No, no. I think we added purplish. Add apply background purplish. There you go. You have that one there, and then this one over here. Perfect. So this styling is looking actually good. Let's get back to the template side for the HTML. After the form, you have our grocery list, and every grocery list, and in this case that you added momentarily, we have a list item. I don't know, tortilla, right? Let me change this ID to class, probably. Actually, let's remove it. Let's go directly to there. And I will apply as a sister element of the form, but inside the main, the UL classes, and here we'll apply the lead item classes. Right? So add apply, and here will be add apply. Right? Oops. And we do that in the middle. So let me see what I had here. And it doesn't like it because those are empty. Let's do our list item by itself. Do some changes here. Let's do flex, flex column, items, center, justify center, rounded, large, and our list item, let's do just simple background white for now. Okay, so getting there. Let's actually do background comment. I think the one that we had it on our CSS. And our list item, we change the text to background. Let's add some margin and some padding. Okay. Let's do a width element of 96 probably. A really big width, so we can actually make it a little bit bigger. And let's center the text. Cool. And something that we can add here could be where are the margin, where are the padding? Well, probably we need to push it a little bit more. What is missing here? Domain, item center, justify center. Let's actually do a gap here. And yeah, that will push things a little more. So probably we can remove this margin tab from the form because actually the gap does it for us. Perfect. So with that gap element in the main, or title, form, and the list, we have a gap of 8, size 8. That will be some, I don't know what is the sizing, but it's a good sizing for now. One last thing is to the list item, and that's the CSS styling that we had it. And we're pretty much finished. When we hover over, we change the font bold and the color. So let's go back to here. Let's do when the list item is also hover. So it's hover. We need to apply. Let's do background purplish and font bold. There you go. But now the mouse is not doing what it's supposed to. Let's do the cursor to be a pointer. All those classes you can look at them in the Tailwind configuration. So now we pretty much have our elements there, our styling. The next phase will be do the Vue.js part, and I think these videos are way too long, so I will cut it right here, and I will submit a second part where we continue working with the rest. Don't don't worry. If you have any question, any doubt, don't hesitate to reach me. Happy coding, everybody.